Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fine Feathered Friends History Redo. My name is Jay Bird, and today's episode is The Night the British Burned Down Washington, D.C. On August 24th, 1814, the British Army burned down Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. The British and the United States were in the middle of the War of 1812, and the two sides were fighting each other into a stalemate with no clear winner. Thanks to a European continental war between Great Britain and France, the British in Canada and West Indies fought defensively against the upstart Americans. On April 11, 1814, a defeated Napoleon I abdicated his throne and was exiled to Elba. The British turned their attention towards the United States. Bad blood has been brewing between the Americans and British armies, thanks in part to the battle campaigns in Canada. The Americans were getting carried away in their lack of gentlemanly rules of combat. They were sacking and looting the cities near the American-Canadian border for the past year, destroying civilian properties and homes. The Battle of York on April 27, 1813, a large American force attacked the Canadian port city. American generals Dearborn and Zebulon Pike, who would later die in a gunpowder explosion that day, led the army that overpowered the British defenders and burned the city of York into the ground. A year later, the American forces would raid and loot the city of Port Dover. Lieutenant Colonel John B. Campbell ordered the looting and destruction of the city. He was later found out to be acting on orders of his own. He would later say it was payback for the British raid on Havre de Grace. After the raid on Port Dover, George Prevost demanded the British Army seek retribution against the Americans. He also wrote to Sir Alexander Cochrane and asked that his forces inflict a measure of retaliation which shall deter the enemy from a repetition of similar outrages. Major General Robert Ross marched into Bladensburg on August 24, 1814, with 15,000 soldiers and defeated a much larger army of over 6,900 American troops by outflanking the defenders. There was nothing stopping the British Army as they continued to march their way towards Washington, D.C. Additional support came from Rear Admiral George Cockburn, who brought over 3,000 Marines and easily destroyed the Americans' naval defenses. Washington, D.C. was in total panic as the British Army marched into the city. People were expecting a party to celebrate the defeat of the British invaders. Now they were running from them. American President James Madison even had a large banquet and party prepared to celebrate the victory, but he, along with his Oval Office and staff, fled the city. The only people who ate the sumptuous meal were the soldiers that had planned to burn the White House down. Robert Ross ordered all public buildings to be destroyed, including the Treasury Building, the Capitol, the White House, Fort McNair, and the Department of War Building. George Cockburn wanted to burn the entire city into the ground, but was satisfied with its destruction. He even had his portrait painted, with Washington, D.C. burning in the background. The First Lady, Dolley Madison, tried to save as many valuable items as she could, but was only able to save the silverware and a few things that she stuffed into her purse. According to the family slave, Paul Jennings, the White House gardener and the doorman were able to save the famous portrait of George Washington along with whatever valuables they could carry. So the legend of Dolley Madison saving the portrait of George Washington is false. According to Paul Jennings, there was no way Miss Madison was going to climb up a ladder. Ross's soldiers occupied Washington, D.C. for over a day before leaving. As they withdrew from the city, a large tropical storm entered the region, putting out the fires, but also causing additional damage to the devastated city. But the British were unable to capitalize on this victory, as they would be soundly defeated 3 weeks later at the Battle of Baltimore. This would be the last time the U.S. Capitol was under attack and damaged, until you-know-who orchestrated the insurrection on January 6, 2021. Never forget. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Fine Feather Friends History Redo. My name is Jay Bird, and I hope to see you soon. Take care now. Bye.